The straight line cast is used for most wet fly situations and for fishing dry flies straight upstream or at 12 o'clock.
At this point, your ability to throw nice straight line casts is probably a little lacking. If you remember in the first tape, I told you the key was aiming the cast low over the water. Well, that aim is really critical. You don't want to aim it higher than the horizon or it's going to fall back in your face. It'll never lay down straight. And if you aim it a little bit too low, you're probably going to stub it. So there's an angle just over the water that you've really got to work on to make that cast lay out nice and straight. So work with that angle. It's very critical. The second thing that I want to tell you that will improve your straight line cast is don't change your technique between the false cast and the delivery cast. Most anglers make the mistake of false casting too high, and then on the final delivery cast, they change their technique by dropping the rod tip out of a straight line. Remember, we want the flow of energy straight to the target and straight back. So, get the technique going, even on your false cast, and all you got to do is let it go. The next point is, after the loop forms and the line starts rolling to the target, then you drop your rod tip. It's kind of like the follow-through of a baseball pitcher. That puts your rod down in the proper fishing position and lets the fly land softly, so you have delicate presentation. And the final tip is the energy of the cast. If you throw too hard for the amount of line, it'll hit the end and bounce back. And of course, if you throw too easy, you'll kill it. And maybe one more little tip. Let the line slide through your hand just a little bit right at the last second, and that'll help that line stay out there straight. Let me do that one more time. This time I'll hang on to the line. There you go. Nice and straight. That softens the cast. Now, when you practice it two ways. Without shooting line, like that, and then practice shooting. Also, same thing backhanded. You should be able to deliver straight line cast from the backside without shooting, and then add the shoot. So, just to quickly review, aim is critical. Aim it below the horizon. Keep your technique proper. Don't false cast high. Get the energy right and a little shoot, and you should have a nice cast that'll roll right out to that old brown trout. Work on your straight line cast. Now, let's see the straight line cast in slow motion. Aim low, keep your loop tight, and follow through with the rod tip. Use this cast to fish dry flies upstream and most wet flies at any angle.
Stripping line is a method of removing slack that allows you to fish a tighter, more controlled system.
As a fly fisherman, one of the biggest problems you'll encounter is slack line. Now, by slack line, I mean loose, crooked line laying all over the river. It's a real problem. Here's what I'm talking about. If you make a cast upstream and you don't put the line over your finger to collect the slack, and I see a lot of fishermen doing this, look what happened under the rod tip. All of this loose line is forming. You can't set a hook. It's very difficult to cast. Remember, back in our basics, you need a straight line to cast. So if you'll simply put the line over the finger, it can be two fingers, the middle finger. Most people use the index. Put the line over the finger and collect that slack line as it forms under your rod tip. Then you're in a position to set a hook, make a good cast, and you're under control. So learn to strip. Take the line in at the speed of the current. Now, there are two other forms of stripping. One is used for streamers, and the other one is simply pulling line off your reel. But for what we're talking about now, it's when you fish straight upstream with dry flies, you want to be able to put that line over the finger, strip it in at the speed of the current, keep your system nice and neat and tidy, and you'll be under control. And that's the name of the game, keeping yourself always under control when you're in the river. By combining the straight line cast with stripping, you have an effective method of fishing dry flies upstream, basically the upstream quadrant, or from 10:30 to 1:30 on the clock. With this technique and all the others that follow, you will automatically apply the control system. Line over the finger, lower the rod, and follow the drifting line.
Mending is repositioning line on the water after the cast is made. It can be used to add slack for longer drag-free floats or to add tension for movement of the fly.
The key to repositioning line after the cast is made is in the wrist. It's very similar to your basic casting stroke. Let me show you what I mean. If I want to throw the line up to the right, I use a little bit of arm, but the final power is that quick little movement of the wrist. Just learn to snap that wrist right and left and throw the line wherever you want it. You should be able to do it forehanded and backhanded. You should really work in your mending, because as you get into more and more dry fly fishing, after that cast is made, you want to reposition the line, put it in a different position so you get a nice, long, drag-free float. Work on that quick wrist for mending. By combining the straight line cast with mending and stripping, you get longer floats and can fish from your body position upstream or from 9 to 3 on the clock. Each of these casts and techniques I'm going to show you will build and piggyback on one another. And once you've mastered them, you'll have the ability to choose the right combination to get the longest natural drift possible. You'll be able to measure your success in yards of drag-free float. And that's the name of the game. The longer your fly floats drag-free, the greater your probability of catching a trout. Now that you know how to zip your line out on the water as straight as an arrow and strip and mend, let me show you how to improve your slack line cast.
The slack line cast is used to fish across currents of varying speeds. It allows your fly to float drag-free for a longer period of time than a straight line cast. The principle behind this cast is to use more line than is necessary to reach the target and form it into a series of controlled wrinkles or serpentines. As the wrinkles are straightened by the currents, your fly drifts in a natural manner.
The advanced slackline cast will give you the ability to handle those difficult situations. Those days when it's windy, those places where you want to tuck it underneath some overhanging obstruction, under a tag alder, under a tree. Also, it'll allow you to fish every angle of the clock. In the basic slackline cast, you learn to throw a wide loop high and simply lower the rod and let the line puddle to the target. You threw high, you lowered the rod. Well, that's fine on a windless day and when you don't have a tough place to throw into, but when that wind's blowing, if you got to tuck it near the bank, you have to go in with a lower loop, and here's the way you get your slack. You bring your line hand into play, and you throw the cast, you pull back, lower the rod, follow the drifting line. To learn this, practice pulling with your left hand on a few high casts, gradually lower the cast and tighten the loop, and pretty soon you're buzzing it right over the water. Your timing's good in the pullback, you'll get nice slack serpentines down the stream, and you'll get a great float. So work on your advanced slackline cast, and the key to that is that quick pull with the left wrist. But you get that down and you can handle any difficult situation. Now there's one more slackline cast I'd like to show you. It's called the stutter cast.